I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and apparently the Washington Commanders are still shopping for veteran corners out there. Apparently, the Washington Commanders tried to sign veteran cornerback Steven Nelson before he retired yesterday. So we're going to dive into what that even means. Are they low on Benjamin St-Juste, Michael Davis, and Emmanuel Forbes is our trio of outside corners right now. We're going to take a look at Pro Football Focus grades. And of course, we got to look at the best cornerbacks available, because if they're clearly in the market for a free agent corner right now, a veteran one, then we got to take a look at who some of the other options may be out there outside of Steven Nelson, who just retired, and why are they not signing Stephon Gilmore right now? We're going to try to dive into that as well, but before we get into everything, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, even if the video is coming out late like this, I'm making sure I come out with a video a day, at least one video a day, no matter how random, no matter how small. Daily content here, your one-stop shop for everything Commanders right now. Of course, there's not much going on in Commanders land, not at least until Tuesday when we have mandatory mini camps. We officially start those June 11th. Those run through June 13th, but who knows, based off of the way that they've given us access to practice so far with the voluntary OTAs. Out of the like 10 plus practices they had for voluntary OTAs, we only had access to even know what was going on, to be able to see what was going on for not only just fans to go, but even like reporters like John Com and Logan Paulson. Even those guys have only been allowed to go to like 3 out of the 10 plus practices we've had. So let's see how they treat the 3 mandatory minicamp practices that we have. And then after that, after June 13th, all the way until whenever training camp starts, more than likely 6 weeks after that, is going to be a pretty big dead period. But my main point is that even though the Commanders may not have a lot going on, I have so many ideas, so much content that I got to get to, especially the rookie film sessions, that I still will be coming out with videos at least once a day. And we're about to start kicking up the call-in show live streams as well. Sorry for such a long intro. Let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so Aaron Wilson at Aaron Wilson _NFL tweeted out and reported yesterday, June 9th at 7:30 p.m. Veteran cornerback Steven Nelson at Corner Suite Pod, a Texans team captain who intercepted a career-high 5 passes last season, tells KPRC2 he is retiring from the NFL. He said, quote, "I'm extremely proud of my legacy and my career," unquote. And I completely agree. I'm never mad at or confused when players retire out of nowhere. Even when they're at a decent age to where they can keep going, I never ever question it, because it's a very dangerous game. If you've already made life-changing money with the money that you've gotten through NFL contracts, you can parlay that, invest, and then you can have generational wealth type of stuff going on. So, hey, man, as long as he has everything figured out on the business side, the family side, I completely respect. And honestly, I even appreciate the fact that these guys acknowledge the fact that, hey, man, I don't necessarily need to be going through this anymore. And before I have any irreparable damage to my brain or my body, let me go and get up out of here. So I respect that decision. But it is crazy that he was coming off of his best season of his career, at least statistically. And now, because of that, multiple NFL teams, including the Texans, the Raiders, the Giants, the Rams, the Dolphins, and most importantly for us, the Commanders, made prospective contract offers or serious inquiries about signing Steven Nelson this offseason. So not just thinking about it, thinking out loud type of, no, we've made serious calls about, okay, we're actually really thinking about signing this guy. We at least want to bring him in, talk to him, maybe do some contract negotiation type of stuff. This was according to several general managers and league sources. However, Nelson made the choice instead to retire for family and business reasons, as said by him. Again, I highly respect that. I love that decision. I applaud him, if anything, for making those types of decisions. But the main thing to take from this as a Commanders fans, because this is technically Texans news, their corner just retired, but the reason that the Commanders matter in this is, of course, we were interested in signing him, and this was after the draft. This was fairly recent when it was said that the Commanders were reaching out to him. So it sounds like the Commanders are still looking for a veteran cornerback, which I thought based on the fact that we didn't sign a Stephon Gilmore, that maybe we weren't in the market for a veteran cornerback. Maybe we were okay with the three that we have right now, our starting trio that we can rotate in and out: Benjamin St-Juste, Michael Davis, and Emmanuel Forbes. Because Mike Sanford, still a lot of those other guys are more slot corners, more Buffalo nickel, extra safety, extra DB on the field type of guys. Our pure outside corners, and that's all they do, are literally Emmanuel Forbes, Michael Davis, and Benjamin St-Juste. And apparently, by the fact that we're still in the market, it sounds like that they are not as comfortable with that three as I'd hoped at this point being in the season. Now, maybe they are not very sure about our outside cornerback group, and to be honest, I'm not necessarily worried about our veteran cornerback group, but I can admit that it is one of the three biggest weaknesses that you can point out on the team right now, like offensive line, outside corner, and maybe wide receiver depth after Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, and Luke McCaffrey. I mean, again, like I said, De'Ami Brown's probably our best blocking wide receiver. He has some potential deep down the field, but still some question marks there. We have Jamison Crowder, who's a pretty dependable slot veteran wide receiver, but still some question marks there. Just overall, the wide receiver depth, not the wide receiver room as a whole, but I just feel like we're one injury away from one of those top three guys to where like Jaden Daniels is out there searching for answers in our wide receiver group. So I prefer that. I don't necessarily think we need to go out there and sign more wide receivers. I just think it's time for a lot of these guys like Jamison Crowder, Olamide Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown especially, to step up and perform at a level to where we feel like we can go 6 deep at receiver and be perfectly comfortable with it. But my main point is, those are probably our three biggest weaknesses right now, and I would definitely throw outside cornerback in that group. Honestly though, if Brandon Coleman can become what I think he will become, but sooner rather than later, because I think he has Pro Bowl tackle potential at left tackle. I think we have our answer at tackle. The question is, how soon? If he can be what I hope he can become by at least 80-90% by week 1, then the O-line could actually end up being one of our strengths, because right now left tackle is our biggest weakness. Trent Scott is a good mobile guy that can move and block in the run game, because we're probably going to pull a lot of tackles and guards. We're going to be pretty run heavy, especially with Anthony Lynn coming here as our run game coordinator. We're going to get really creative with that. We have a running quarterback. We have a lot of pass catching running backs. You just never know. Defense is always going to be caught off guard. So right now, Trent Scott could potentially become your starting left tackle, because he's a better move blocker, a more mobile guy, and a better run blocker. But then you have Cornelius Lucas, who's the better pass blocker, but not a good run blocker. If you want to ask Jaden Daniels to basically do 3 and 5 step drops all day and scan the field and deliver passes all day. But right now, we don't have a guy that can do both. Brandon Coleman has the potential to be really good at all of those things, to basically be what Trent Scott is good at, what Cornelius Lucas is good at, combine them in the one person, and then also be better at those things and good at other things as well. Brandon Coleman has that level ceiling. The problem is, will he be there as soon as we need him going into week 1 of the regular season, when Jaden Daniels needs his blind spot blocked for him? If he can, then honestly, the offensive line becomes one of our strengths. Left tackle is like really the only true concern I have about the offensive line. You know, Andrew Wiley, but he looked better to end the season last year. Y'all already seen my video where I broke down exactly why I feel like Samuel Cosmi is literally the best player on this team. Tyler Biadasz is a top 10 center in the NFL, and I believe we have enough competing guards at left guard to where we're going to find the right guy to start there. It's really just left tackle. If we solve left tackle, if Brandon Coleman can be better sooner rather than later, then really our only weaknesses are outside corner and wide receiver depth. And again, we have possibilities. We have some potential there as the wide receiver depth. So honestly, you can argue that outside corner is probably our biggest what if right now, like biggest question mark, biggest red flag on the team right now, because we don't necessarily have a bunch of answers there. So I can see, I'm saying all of that to say is that I can see why they're potentially looking for more outside cornerback help, especially with a veteran, rather than bringing in a younger guy that may take some time to develop that we could have brought in through the draft or whatever. And so, again, going back to Stephon Gilmore, I'm assuming that the only reason we haven't hit him up yet is because he'll be 34 this season. That has to only be it. Because at first, I thought it was only because we weren't looking for other veteran outside corners. I thought, okay, maybe they feel like we're comfortable with what we have. That's the reason why we're not signing Stephon Gilmore. But now we just found out that they were trying to sign Steven Nelson. So they are looking for veteran outside corners. And if they haven't signed Stephon Gilmore yet, it literally can only be because of age. I mean, that's it. When you're looking at Spot Track's estimation of what his market value would be, they have it estimated to be $9 million per year. But I highly highly doubt he would get that, especially at this point. I believe that's what it was at the beginning of free agency, leading up to free agency, like early March, late February, when they calculated that. I think at this point, he's not going to fetch anywhere near anything like that. So I think he's good to go. I think we should go ahead and get him. I mean, last year for the Cowboys, he was a $9.9 million cap hit. So maybe that's why they think he could potentially get slightly more than that this offseason. But by now, by where we are right now, maybe he's just sticking it out because he does want a certain amount of money. But I just don't think he's going to be able to demand that much at this point. But even just assuming that he's going to be willing to sign for less than $10 million per year. But again, with him being 34 years old, it will probably just be a 1-year prove-it deal. He's probably just going to sign 1-year deals until he officially retires. So it would just be a 1-year deal worth something less than $10 million, I'm assuming. And taking a look at his Pro Football Focus grades, and even I think the film backs it up. From the little bit I've watched Stephon Gilmore leading up to free agency, and then why he was one of the guys I really wanted us to go get. I mean, he had a 74.4 overall grade, a 76.1 run defense grade. That's big time. We're going to talk about that run defense part when we get to Emmanuel Forbes. And he had a 72.3 coverage grade, man. I mean, he was very solid last year. Very, very, very solid. I mean, if you're comparing him to the rest of the cornerbacks in the NFL, Pro Football Focus grade-wise, they had him graded as the 35th best corner in the entire NFL last year. And there's 32 teams, and each team starts at least 2 outside corners pretty much every play that you're on the field. So if he's the 35th best corner, that means he's basically like a top half of the league corner right now, even at last year when he was 33 years old. That's above Ronald Darby. That's above guys like Terrell Smith, Denzel Ward, Patrick Surtain the second last year. My boy Marcus Peters, one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. I mean, Jaquan McMillian, Isaiah Oliver. I mean, a lot of really talented corners. Pro Football Focus felt like he had a better season than all of those guys last year at 33 years old. But most importantly, he was better than the Steven Nelson guy that they were trying to sign just now. So it has to be because of age. I mean, that's the only answer. Steven Nelson had a 71.9 overall grade against Stephon Gilmore, had a 74.4. And his run defense grade was a 58.9, worse than Stephon Gilmore's. And his coverage grade was a 73.1, which was 0.9 better than Stephon Gilmore. But Stephon Gilmore beat him in every other way, every grading aspect possible, even better overall grade. But again, the biggest gap was the run defense grade there. And so when you're comparing him, Stephon Gilmore, to the guy that they tried to sign in Steven Nelson, I'm like, why are we not going after Stephon Gilmore if you were going after Steven Nelson? I mean, Steven Nelson isn't that young. I mean, he's 31 years old. He'll be 32 by January if we're playing in the postseason. But basically, my point is he'll be 31 throughout the season, which is a couple of years less than Stephon Gilmore. But it's not like he's just this 26 to 29-year-old in his prime type of guy. So that's just really interesting. And then they even compare the other outside corners that are already on this roster, comparing him to Stephon Gilmore, all of those guys. Michael Davis last year had a 56.5 overall grade. Again, compared to the Stephon Gilmore 74.4. But the thing with Michael Davis is that when you're talking about Michael Davis and the positives I've given y'all when talking about us signing him, breaking that signing down and things like that, back in 2022, he had a 72.7 overall grade, his best grade of his entire career. And I would argue that that's more of the Michael Davis that we're potentially going to get here than the 2023 version, which had the 56.5 version of himself, because the Chargers coaching situation last year was terrible. One of the worst in the league. I mean, they literally just left their DBs out there to die. And so I feel like, I mean, maybe it's just me being glass half full, it's me being Mr. Optimistic like I usually am, but I feel like we're definitely going to get closer to the 2022 Michael Davis than we will to the 2023 one from last year, with all of that terrible coaching turmoil and things like that. But even then, even his best season of his career was not better, Pro Football Focus grade wise, than Stephon Gilmore season last year at 33 years old. And then continuing on, Benjamin St-Juste. He had a 59.9 overall grade last year. His run defense grade was pretty good, though, with a 75.1, but his coverage grade was a 56.4, all of which are worse than Stephon Gilmore's, at least overall and coverage grade wise. And it's not even close. He's in the 50s. Stephon Gilmore was in the 70s. And Benjamin St-Juste is another one where he played way better in 2022, even though his Pro Football Focus grades don't reflect that at all. They actually felt like he was better this past season in 2023 than 2022 grading wise. But I felt like he played better in 2022. But either way, we can hope that Michael Davis and Benjamin St-Juste get back to the 2022 versions of themselves going into this season. But even then, at their best, the best seasons they've ever had graded don't even live up to the season that Stephon Gilmore had last year, again at 33 years old. And then even though I do feel like Emmanuel Forbes could step right into that 2023 Deron Bland role, that 2022 Trevon Diggs role as like the interception hunting corner, while like you have the Stephon Gilmore on the other side shutting down receivers, blanketing receivers, you have Emmanuel Forbes out there interception hunting and going for the big plays. And I feel like Emmanuel Forbes will find a great deal of success in that play style and role under this elite defensive coaching staff. But at the same time, last year he had a 50.9 overall grade, an abysmal 28.4 run defense grade, and a 57.6 coverage grade, all of which are way worse than every single grading metric that Stephon Gilmore had last year, again at 33 years old. And the fact that they are still shopping for corner must mean that they may not like what they've seen in practice so far. Even though I've heard pretty good things about Forbes from guys like Logan Paulson who have gone to a few of the practices, the only practice that they've allowed us to actually go to. But his biggest question is how Forbes will hold up once we put on the pads, we move to full contact practice, and Forbes has to step up and tackle guys like Brian Robinson in the run game. But coverage wise, I've been hearing good things about Emmanuel Forbes so far this offseason, but maybe they want more guys that are more balanced and can both cover and make plays against the run. Because again, to go back to Stephon Gilmore, his run defense grade was a 76.1. His coverage grade was a 72.3. Overall, 74.4. A great season last year. And again, mind you, 33 years old. Everything he did was pretty much better than any corner that we have on this team currently. So again, I'm just confused as to why they're not going to get Stephon Gilmore. But again, I'm just going to assume that it has to be because of age, even though unless he just falls off a cliff going into 2024, he looks like he's better than anything we have on the roster. But just moving on from Stephon Gilmore and Steven Nelson, because we've already talked about Stephon long enough, and Steven just retired, like that's the catalyst of this whole video. You also have Adoree Jackson, who, according to Pro Football Focus, was better against the run than he actually was in coverage last year. So if that's something that you're worried about, as far as run, you want a cornerback that can stop the run, unlike what Emmanuel Forbes has shown so far, probably in practice and looking at his film last year, then maybe you have Adoree Jackson. Right now, SpotTrack has his market value at $10.4 million. And this is a guy that is 28 years old. He'll be 29 at some point in the season. So this is a guy that you can maybe even sign longer than a 1-year contract. They're assuming that he'll get like a 3-year deal worth $10.4 million per year. But again, at this point in the offseason, I mean, we're all the way in June now. I highly doubt he'll demand any sort of money in that range at all. He'll probably go for something way cheaper than that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that and point out what SpotTrack has him making, but I just highly doubt it is that. But when we're talking overall grade, last year for the Giants, Adoree Jackson was even worse than Emmanuel Forbes with his overall grade. Again, Emmanuel Forbes had a 50.9, Adoree Jackson had a 48.6, but his run defense grade was pretty decent, a 59.9, but his coverage grade was a 45.9. Again, even worse than Emmanuel Forbes. You thought Emmanuel Forbes was bad. He had a 57.6 coverage grade last year. Adoree Jackson, again, had a 45.9, like significantly worse. And I don't know how y'all feel about signing ex-Giants, ex-NFC East guys. If you wanted to, maybe there's him. But, I mean, he was really bad last year, man. I mean, one of the worst corners in the entire NFL last year. But he's supposed to be really fast. He's supposed to have a lot of potential. I remember him coming out of college, that he was just this speed demon that could kind of double up as a returner as well. But it hasn't turned into that at the NFL level. Then you also have Xavier Howard, but we're going to skip right past him because he has some crazy drama off the field going on right now. And so that's just an automatic cross out. I don't even want to dive into that situation, but I did want to throw the fact out there that he is a veteran free agent corner that's available. And if you want to know why we're not going after Xavier Howard, just go look it up yourself. He has some craziness going on. Then you also have JC Jackson. And last year, when we're talking about one of the worst corners in the NFL, he was even worse than Adoree Jackson. We talked about Emmanuel Forbes being in the 50s. Adoree Jackson being in the 40s. How about JC Jackson was in the 30s, low 30s, 34.8 overall grade, a 30.8 coverage grade. So as bad as Adoree Jackson was compared to even Emmanuel Forbes, that JC Jackson is just that much worse going the other way. Like, I mean, just terrible last year. And even in 2022, he had a 28.7 overall grade. One of the worst grades I've ever seen a corner get in my lifetime of paying attention to this Pro Football Focus stuff. That's absolutely ridiculous. But at the same time, in 2021, he had an 82.6 overall grade. One of the best corners in the entire NFL just 3 years ago. Can we get him back to that point? Who knows at all? I mean, right now, he's only 28 years old. He'll be 29 by November, the middle of November. So it's not like he's just falling off of a cliff athletically. I don't know what happened these past couple of years. I haven't had the time to just go watch JC Jackson tape like that. But I mean, he's been absolutely unplayable the past 2 years. But if you can get him back to his 2021 self, you have a Pro Bowl corner. So that's a gamble right there that I just highly doubt we take, because I highly doubt you can bring that out of him. I just highly do. But we did hire his defensive backs coach from last year in Tom Donatel. But JC Jackson had a bad season last year, like we've just talked about. So maybe JC blames Donatel for his poor play. Maybe Donatel on his end doesn't want JC because of how poorly JC played last year. I mean, you just never know. Just throwing stuff out there and just thinking out loud. And I just feel like since we brought in his DB's coach here, if Donatel wanted JC, we probably would have vouched for him by now. And I'm admittingly jumping to conclusions and assuming that he didn't vouch for him just by the fact that we are in the market for a veteran corner. JC Jackson is available and we haven't gone to sign him. So maybe Tom Donatel does not rock with JC Jackson like that. He was supposed to be elite. He's just another one of those corners that is elite for the Patriots, and then he goes to another team and just falls off a cliff. It's like a really weird phenomenon, man. Because just again, to mind you, 2021 season, when he had his best season of his career and was arguably one of the best corners in the entire NFL that year, that was his last year in New England. He went to the Chargers these past 2 years and was one of the worst corners in the NFL those last 2 years. Then you also have Patrick Peterson, who will also be 34 years old this season, just like Stephon Gilmore will be. But at the same time, though, he hasn't been as good as Stephon Gilmore has been these past couple of years. He just hasn't. When you're taking a look at his Pro Football Focus grades, it has not been the same guy. He has not been as good as Stephon Gilmore. And I know we're talking about a multi-first team All-Pro guy. We're talking about an 8-time Pro Bowler, but he didn't look like that last year at all, man. He had a 60.5 overall grade, but as we've broken down a lot of these players throughout this video, that doesn't even sound as bad anymore. Compared to Stephon Gilmore, it's nowhere near as good, but compared to some of these other cornerbacks we've been talking about this video, I don't know, man. It may not be that bad, but again, he's 34 years old, but even though Stephon Gilmore is 34 years old as well, I just feel like Patrick Peterson looks 34 years old more than Stephon Gilmore does, again, especially compared to last year, the 2023 season, where Stephon Gilmore, I mean, I didn't even realize until I was working on this video that he was even that old, because he didn't look like it for the Cowboys, I'm not going to lie. And then also it would be a seamless transition. He would just follow Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. from the Cowboys to the Commanders with them, so he would be ahead in the defensive scheme and knowing exactly what they want and things like that. I just feel like he's a perfect match. It's crazy that we still haven't signed him. Has to be because of age, which again takes me back to the point that Patrick Peterson is probably an automatic no just because of age, because he's the same age as Stephon Gilmore, only older but like a month or two, and then also played worse. And if we're not signing Stephon Gilmore because he's 34 years old, why would we sign Patrick Peterson? But crazy enough, Patrick Peterson had his second highest graded season in his entire career just 2 years ago in his 2022 NFL season. Back when he was playing for the Minnesota Vikings with an 80.7 overall grade. Again, it was his second highest graded season. I don't even believe he made the Pro Bowl that year. He's made the Pro Bowl 8 times, but Pro Football Focus felt like 2022 was the second best year of his entire career. But are we just gonna, if we're being consistent, and if we're going off of the logic and the hope that every corner that the Commanders have involved go back to the 2022 selves, including Emmanuel Forbes, who was killing it in college in 2022, Michael Davis and Benjamin St-Juste, so we can get a 2022 versions of themselves as well, then can we do the same for Patrick Peterson? Or is he just too old for us to count on that? Because if we could just unlock the 2022 version of every corner that we've talked about that's attached to the Commanders right now, the 3 guys on roster and Patrick Peterson, who we're talking to right now, we could put together an all-star cast of outside corners. But of course, there's no promise that those guys will ever go back to the 2022 selves, especially not all 3 of them. Highly doubt it. Wouldn't put any money on it. Then you also have, as far as other corners out there that's available, you have Keon Carlson from the New York Giants as well. You have Kawan Williams from the Denver Broncos, Trey Herndon from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Eli Apple from the Miami Dolphins. That's a really notable name. He's always trending on social media during games. It's hilarious. You have Justin Bethel from the Miami Dolphins as well. You have Rashad Fenton from the Arizona Cardinals. You have Fabian Moreau. I know y'all remember that name from the Denver Broncos. Last time I checked, I remember him being on the Falcons, but I lost track of him after that. Chandon Sullivan from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Darryl Worley from the Baltimore Ravens, Logan Ryan from the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, there's some decent names out there. I wouldn't say great options. Just to kind of run through some of the last few names out there, we would be here forever if I literally read every name available, but those were some of the notable ones to end out this video. Just go ahead and wrap it all up. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, no matter what, I'm gonna find something to talk about every day. I have so many ideas, so many different concepts and videos. I want to do more depth chart projections. I'm working on a video where, like, defensively, depending on what the situation is, 3rd and 1, I'm gonna show y'all the pictures and the names and the positions of what group we would throw out there, defensive line, linebacker, and DB wise. What would our 11 guys on the field look like 3rd and 1? How about 1st and 10? How about 3rd and 20? How about goal line stand 4th and 1? You know, so I'm working on a video like that. Y'all know how I show y'all the visuals with everybody's pictures like I've done in previous videos the past couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. I have so many video ideas. So no matter what, there's always something to talk about with the Commanders. Plus, there's always new information like today where we could do a deep dive into the fact that the Commanders were interested in Steven Nelson, but ended up not getting him because he retired. You just never know. So either way, this is your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. If we get any practice updates from this mandatory minicamp happening from June 11th through the 13th, y'all know I'm not only going to break down what happened, but also get the clips to show you what happened as well. So no matter what, the Commanders, no matter how did the Commanders have nothing going on their end, Rico of Street Scores always has at least one video for y'all every day. And again, like I said, I want to start getting these call-in show live streams going again as well. And then also, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I really appreciate it if you like the video right now. Also, make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a comment. That's one of the most important things. I want to know how y'all feel about everything discussed in this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Do you feel like we need any veteran corners still, or do you feel like we should just go ahead and rock with the guys that we have? If you do want more veteran corners, who is your favorite option out there? Is it Stephon Gilmore, or is it somebody else right now? Do you feel like Stephon Gilmore is too old and he's probably going to fall off a cliff going into the season, or do you believe he can just do what he did last year again this year coming up? So let me know how you feel about everybody, including Adoree Jackson, JC Jackson, Patrick Peterson, anybody, or how you just feel about this outside cornerback group as a whole. So let me know all of that. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. Again, I've been super busy, so I'm just gonna have to sit down one day, just sit down for hours and just try to read and reply to as many comments as possible. So stay tuned for that. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.